This is episode 265, and I'm going to call it NEPisode. On this one, our siblings are coming on to rehash or I should say add to some of the discussion about metronomes and tempo tracks and stuff like that from a few episodes ago. And we also end up talking about digital wind instruments and other kinds of expressive MIDI controllers. And it's a really, really fun discussion. We didn't get to do the normal intro because the ending of it ended up getting cut off because there was a tornado nearby. And I had to suddenly wake up my daughter and carry her to the basement. So anyway, it's still pouring rain, but there's no more spinning clouds. So I'm back up here to record a little intro for it. And anyway, I'll cut into the episode now. Hope you enjoy it. All right. Ta-da. This looks different.
We've finally organized the great gathering of the siblings on the tone control.
This episode is nepotism.
Yes.
Nepopodcast. Nope. I regret.
NEPisode.
Okay, that was all right. I like that. So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start because you all who are my co-hosts here who can't see the video version of the podcast while it's recording, I would just like to inform them that the way this is being presented to the audience is that Derek and I are on the bottom of the screen and Kate and Ty are up top, but we're flipped. So we are associated diagonally by blood.
This way?
So
nope,
wait,
the other way,
this
Derek.
way or this way? If I wanted to Brady Bunch you.
If you go down right, that's me. And if you go right.
Is this my right?
Wait, who's right?
Yes, that's your right.
I'm not sure.
Your actual right.
You're as bad as my kindergartners.
Oh boy. Anyway.
Nice.
Anyway.
Welcome to the Tone Control, sisters and brothers of hosts of the Tone Control. This is exciting. What was it, like 2 months ago, we talked about metronomes and things?
It was at least 3 or 4 episodes ago, I think.
Yeah. And then I sent it to Kate, we'll get to what Kate does in a second, but she was like yelling at the radio to like chime in and stuff. And Ty texted at the same, like sometime that week as well. Like, I have so many thoughts on this. And we said, all right, let's just get everybody on the phone.
Right.
And kind of rehash this, not rehash, but have this special episode. So here we are.
I have notes.
Tyler prepared notes.
Hey, that makes one of us.
Yeah.
I have a prediction as to what at least one major topic that Kate may have to chime in on may be. And I'm very curious to see if I'm right.
Do you want to write it in an envelope and then lick it in front of us? And then at the end, you'll open it? It'll be like a magic trick.
I'll lick my iPad for you. That's where I've already written it.
Extremely unsanitary.
So,
you don't know how clean my iPad is.
I know how clean it's going to be after you lick it.
Yeah. So, we have a giveaway to wrap up here before we get going.
Yes.
In today's episode. So as a reminder, if you're, somehow still uninformed, you can enter giveaways via our Discord server. So come in there. There's a giveaways channel. And what is it? Every 2 or 3 episodes or something like that.
Providing we remember.
Doing a little bit of, we're doing a little bit of a, hey, here's a couple of gift cards to a cool place. Do you want them? And everyone's like, oh, pick me. And then we pick some and you win them. So today, we're giving away a couple of gift cards, a couple of $25 gift cards. Are we giving away a sibling? Oh, okay. Let's talk about pivoting.
I was going to say, am I too late?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Yeah, sorry.
I popped in there to write like ask if I was too late, knowing full well that I was, but I couldn't because I guess you can't actually comment, but I reacted with a swan. So
Okay.
there you have it.
We have drawn winners already.
We have drawn. I drew them at like 6, almost 6, maybe a little before 6 p.m. So it's possible that you were in there. I don't know.
So, right. But yeah,
But
so
you
we're
didn't
giving away
win.
two
Spoiler
25
alert.
We're giving away two $25 gift cards to Honey Picks. And Honey Picks is on their, like, some kind of, I think it's their 4-year anniversary thing this week. And they just released some really cool picks. So those could be yours if you're the lucky winner. And those lucky winners are Justin.
No, not me. That's not correct.
Throwing it to Justin.
Hold on. I have to
pitch it to Justin.
I have to go to the window
live in
where
the
I
studio.
typed it to you because I forget already. Those winners are, it is, frick, why did we type so much to each other?
Because we're friends.
Okay, first, Tim S., who is one of my friends that I play a game with, who came over to this server as well. So congratulations, Tim. And who the heck was the other one?
The Steve.
There it is. Sorry. I was like scrolling. I'm on the wrong window in Discord. I have too many windows. My apologies. I wasn't prepared. So the Steve and Tim S., who are, and I'm crashing my Discord again by changing windows. There we go. I'm back.
He's back. Okay. So yeah, congrats Tim, congrats Steve. Oh my gosh, you're right. TS and TS, Tube Screamer and Tube Screamer.
Oh, shoot.
So anyway, we'll get those gift cards over to you via email soon. If we don't have your emails, I will let you know, but I think we may. But yeah, awesome. Congrats.
Congrats and thanks for hanging around, I guess.
Yeah.
So, oh, good God. I really screwed up my whole computer with that, and I'm like watching my camera slowly catch up. Remind me never to do that again. Am I reasonable?
Now you're going real fast.
I'm almost up to real time. Oh, there we go.
Okay,
I think
back.
I'm back. Okay, wow. I'm going to leave that all in. This is exciting stuff. So,
You look fine to us, so
okay.
off of YouTube or whatever.
We normally just chit chat and tell stories about our boring lives. Except I have a very exciting story to tell. So instead of giving you all the option to make that not happen, since we have guests, I'm going to insist that it still happens.
Okay.
But I mean, is this, tell me if I'm doing bad form. Should we more thoroughly introduce our guests first?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So right up here in this corner, a man who needs no introduction. And Derek, what's our other guest?
Awesome.
I hope you're talking about me.
No, he's introducing me. Yeah, so.
Oh, okay. So not Kate. Okay.
Right. So yeah, Ty's been on the show a handful of times in the past. So, long-term listeners will recognize you, which is cool. But Kate, my younger sister, has never been on a guitar podcast before in her life. So this is like super embarrassing for her, isn't it?
Yep.
But
A little intimidated, but I'm going to try to keep up.
She's got a guitar in her background.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
More than
that's
I
the
can
other
say.
one that I got from a woman who was on her way to the Goodwill, and she said, "Do you play guitar?" And I said, "Nope, but I'd like to have one." And she gave it to me, and then I hung it on this wall.
Excellent.
But I do play
Perfect.
the banjo and ukuleles, but not
Look at
guitar.
those.
Awesome.
Well, what do you want to do? Should we have you guys introduce yourselves in like a quick elevator pitch of what you're up to?
And I was going to circle back to Ty. I just thought that was very funny, and you know how I am. So Kate, tell us what besides being related to Derek, what else do you do?
So by day, I am an elementary general music teacher. So I teach kindergarten through 4th grade general music. So it's all things singing and folk dancing, and we do a little recorder and a little of those little Orff xylophones. And then by night, I am a pit orchestra musician. So I am a woodwind doubler, which means that I play all the single reed woodwinds for musical theater.
It means you switch instruments all the time. Like you're picking up one thing for one song and right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty rad.
I feel like
You
I
had that like locked and loaded. That speech was ready.
I feel like I had another thing that I was going to ask you, and then I distracted myself with the switching woodwinds bit. So now I don't know what I was going to say.
So my primary is clarinet. I started playing clarinet in 6th grade, and the reason I picked clarinet is because Eric played clarinet first.
Sure did.
So you just had one laying around.
We
Remember
just
that,
already
if I
had
knew.
one, so I said, I guess I'll pick this one. And so it stuck. And so my degree is in clarinet, but I also play, like I said, all the single reed woodwinds, so saxophone, flute, all the variations on those. So
Spectacular.
Yeah.
All right.
Love it. All right, over to you, Ty. So this is Ty. He's my brother there. I don't know what else I was going to come up with by umming that. Ty has been on the show once or twice or maybe 3 times. But let's
Not on video.
Not since we've done a lot of changes in the intervening years. So what all does Ty do? Tell us.
So I guess professionally, I do not do music, but I am a visual designer. So I do like websites and branding and just really small projects and that sort of thing. Oh, that's right. And I worked with Marielle on the
Yes.
your wife on the on the logo for their thing, and that sign is really, really cool.
It is so
It's
brilliant.
rad.
It's so brilliant.
It's so cool. But yeah, so that's the thing I do. I also do another thing part-time that I'm not going to go into here, but and I try to make room in my life for music, and I've been like slowly chipping away at like honestly like 3 albums worth of material, but I'm wearing all the hats, so it just takes molasses years. But I don't know, there's like stuff happening. I'm like thinking about trying to like release some music pretty soon, and
Awesome.
and all that jazz. And we all used to be in a band, but that's been mentioned on the show before.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, since we are exposing our siblings' childhood instruments, Justin, you still have a saxophone around somewhere, right?
I've still got it in our storage room. It's been a couple of years since I took it out of the case. I was able to play it. It felt pretty weird.
Is it safe to assume it's an alto sax?
Yes, it's an alto. So I played all the way up from 4th grade, and never really touched it again after high school. Marching band and all that stuff we did, and I did jazz band and stuff like that. I was like okay at it, And nowadays, I got it out. My daughter wanted to see it a few years ago, and I like dug it out, and I had some like functional reeds in there, and it was although they were just wildly dry. Anyway, I succeeded in playing notes on it. So it wasn't like it
The
just
minimum requirement.
It didn't
That's
just
like
like
all there is
squeak
to
or
it.
something. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the deal.
Yeah.
That's about as well as I did with my flute the last time I tried it. I like, it's weird because like back when we did our last album as a band, I played flute in one of the songs, and I could play it. And now, you know what the problem is though? I think I replaced my old flute. Like somebody stole it at one of our shows, and I replaced it with a open hold flute, and most of them are like partially covered, but I think there's something going on with that. Anyway, whatever. It needs a serious tune-up.
You can get plugs for those, and then it'll be
I
closed.
do. Yeah, I have plugs in most of them. I think it's really just one hole that I left open because I don't have the skill, but I really wanted to try it. So, yeah.
So Kate and I were talking, yesterday, I guess, about what we're going to talk about on the show and stuff. And now that, Justin, we've mentioned saxophones already, I want to talk about Kate's digital sax.
Okay.
Because in the very brief conversation we had on the phone, I'm already detecting a lot of parallels between that side of the music universe going digital. There's a lot of similarity between that and the stick in the mud crowd about guitar stuff being digital. So,
Oh,
okay,
really?
what is? Yeah,
I have
like
stuff
what
to
is
say
your
on this too.
cool? So, yeah, what is your actual digital sax?
Sure. So this is the YDS 150 Yamaha digital saxophone. Yamaha came out with a 150 and a 120 model. So basically the difference, the 150 model has a hammered brass bell. This is a traditional brass bell, but the entire instrument is it. Think of it like a MIDI keyboard with a breath
Yeah.
sensor, and so the way Yamaha intended for it to be used is not the way that I use it. So it comes programmed like a keyboard does. It comes programmed with sounds in it. So you know how like an electric keyboard can have its like hokey sounds that are part of it,
Yeah.
but you can connect it to main stage. In my world, we use main stage. I don't know if main stage is something you guys use ever, but
I've not
I
used
would.
it.
I've heard
but I
of
know
it.
about it.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
But
It's
not
like the
used
live version of Logic.
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So the Yamaha digital sax comes with all 4 saxophone patches programmed into it. So soprano sax, alto sax, tenor sax, and bari sax. And so when this came out as a woodwind doubler, it was very appealing to me because I only play traditional alto sax. So when you picture saxophone in your head, alto sax is the one you picture. But in woodwind doubling, you need all 4 of them. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to buy a baritone sax for $10,000 when I potentially won't book a show for it for like a year, let
Right.
alone also soprano sax and a tenor sax. It's just like where I'm at in my life and the amount that I play. It doesn't make a lot of sense to just shell out all this money for horns that I might not book. Every musical is different, so my instrumentation changes on whatever show I'm playing. And so I would be asked to play shows for saxophones that I don't have. And I would have to decline the show. I'd have to decline the gig because I don't have a bari sax. I couldn't play it. I don't own one. I can't play it. But now with the digital sax, I have access to all 4 saxophones so I can book more gigs because I have all of the horns. So
Do you have a computer with you? Is there like a laptop sitting there running main stage to make this thing work?
Well,
or?
yeah, so that's what I was going to get into. So the way Yamaha intended for it to be used is to only be used in itself. So it has programmed into it 4 saxophone patches.
And it's got like a speaker?
It has a really rinky-dink speaker, but I connected to an amp.
Okay.
I put it
Yeah.
into an
Yeah.
amp.
Yeah.
And so the Yamaha intended for it to be used as like, you're going to go play with a backing track at the bar. And it's just going to be you and a backing track and
Okay.
you just
Okay.
kind of play solo. That was kind of their intention for it. However, I connect it to main stage and now I can use the entire main stage library with the digital saxophone just the same way that a keyboard player can. And so
All
what's
right.
interesting, so
I
what
get
Derek
it.
and I kind of were talking about just briefly yesterday, because we said, well, we'll save it for tomorrow, is that any book that needs coverage or any part that needs coverage, I now can take on with the digital sax. So for example, next month I'm playing Fiddler on the Roof. Fiddler on the Roof is a traditional klezmer sound of a band. And like many theater groups, the group I play with, and this is very typical for community theater, this old-timey orchestration is written for 20, 30 people and is now having to be whittled down to 7, maybe. And so there's a very important English horn solo in Fiddler on the Roof. English horn is double reeds. I don't play double reeds. Double reeds are English horn, oboe, and bassoon. I don't do double reeds. But this English horn part is really critical to the integrity of the show and the era.
Yeah.
And so now I can offer the music director, I can say, we can connect this to main stage using an English horn patch. Because what's the difference between him
it's just
playing it
MIDI
on the keyboard and I'm playing it on...
Right.
It's still the main stage patch, but I have things like vibrato and breath control and volume control. It has that breath sensor, so I can blow harder, and it'll be louder, softer, and it'll be quieter. The same way that a traditional woodwind would play. So
now the YDS, what is it, 150? You said?
Yeah.
Is that like a I don't like what category of product is that? It's not consumer. Is it prosumer? Is it like a high-end professional piece of gear? Because it's not like with that little speaker on it, and with like you're saying how they intended to use it. I'm guessing it's maybe there isn't a super high-end digital sax yet.
So there's another instrument out there. I'll full disclaimer, I don't know a lot about this instrument. It's called the EWI. Have you guys heard of the EWI?
No.
I think I've
The
heard
EWI
of that
came
one.
out. The EWI came out years ago, and it is similar to the digital sax, but what's tricky about it is it has its own, from what I understand, has its own fingering system.
Oh,
So it's,
thing about
it's
woodwinds,
a MIDI breath controller, but it's not based on a sax. It's
the
physically
EWI is correct. Right.
Yeah.
Which doesn't. The thing about woodwind instruments is, for the most part, they lay in the hands all the same way. So to pick up this EWI instrument that has a completely different fingering system doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you have to relearn.
But it
a bunch
also
of
was
stuff.
a very it was a very like computerized synth kind of sound. It was not attempting to be anything but itself. Whereas this is a complete, I know it might be hard to see on camera, but this is a complete soprano sax fingering. So it's everything. It lays exactly the same as a soprano
you're good to go.
sax. Yeah, you're ready to go.
Now, catching up on the chat for a second, there's no audible acoustic sound out of that, correct?
Correct. So if it's powered off, like nothing's gonna,
just nothing
happens.
Okay.
No.
Cool.
It does take common question. This is a traditional alto sax mouthpiece, but it uses a synthetic reed. So it's not a real reed. It's just a plastic reed. But as a doubler, that consistency is important.
Yeah.
Like when I'm going from traditional acoustic clarinet, jumping over to this in a matter of 2 bars, that consistency of feeling a reed and a mouthpiece patch and a traditional mouthpiece keeps it consistent.
So I'm really curious about like I know that these wind controllers have existed, right? But like, so what is the sensor? Like, is there a turbine in there that you're turning? It's clearly measuring the reed somehow, right? Or it wouldn't work right. So like, do you know anything about the sensors?
I know that it is not actually measuring by the reed. If I play it, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it.
Probably not.
And also, it's going to sound really hokey. Can you hear it?
Yeah, it sounds like a saxophone on the telephone.
It sounds like
it does. Yeah.
It's a full disclosure. I know it sounds bad. It's this tiny mic through AirPods. But
is that passive? Does it have batteries in it?
It does have batteries, but you can plug it into a power. You can plug it into a power source.
Right on.
And it's funny because when I bought it, I was the first one to buy it at the music shop that I did. So they had a representative from Yamaha come and do this whole demonstration for their team. And I said, because I knew it was battery powered, I said, "You can connect it to power, right?" And she said, "No, it's only batteries."
That's a mistake. Yeah.
I'm about to return this because I can't have this die in the middle of my English horn solo and Fiddler on the Roof. Like, it's got to last me an entire gig. But come to find out, it can be powered just through a cable. So I leave batteries in it for moments like this and for just to, pick it up and practice. But anyway, back to your question. So, or if you just take it off, it doesn't really matter. I'm still going into it. So this is just for consistency.
It's just for you.
As a woodwind
just for your
player.
Experience.
Wow.
And so it
That's
doesn't
amazing.
look so quirky and headless.
Like a straw.
So the patch you just heard, that was the tenor sax patch. Soprano sax. Remember quite all of them.
Whoa.
It's a
Is that 2 at a time?
multi-sax.
Yeah, that sounded like a chorus.
Sounded like a sax through a pog is what it sounded like.
Yeah, that's multi-sax, which is tenor sax and bari sax together, which is also really helpful. I played back in October, I played the musical Beautiful, the Carol King musical, which is has a lot of big band instrumentation. But again, we're taking this traditional instrumentation and whittling it down to only a few people we can hire. And there's 2 woodwind books, and they hand me both and say, put them together.
There you go.
And so the multi-sax, they're separated by octaves, is kind of nice because are you going to get the harmony? No, but I'm going to get more fill of having
just more sonic information,
just having more range in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've talked a lot about guitar modeling and stuff on this show over the years because it's like kind of the ongoing current conversation of like cutting edge tech for guitar.
Are you going to ask her to model a guitar with it?
Bet you could with Mainstage.
I mean, can't you?
Yes, I can. And it's funny. I tell my like bandmates that I play with, I'm like, y'all better watch yourselves because I'm coming for your books if you fuck this up.
Yeah.
I can be all of you.
I can
break them out. So,
but like, do you guys hear the same kind of the similarity in?
Do you get sass? I think is what he's asking, right? Like, if you pull this out, do the other player like, like, you know, that get the real thing, like this analog versus digital
Big
argument
time.
sort of shit? Yeah,
big time. I have people that are. It seems to be one extreme or the other, right? So I have people that are like, "That's the coolest thing ever. You should play nothing but that because why would you?" And then you have people that are like, "How dare you bring that trash into this pit?" And
you defiled my pit.
I will say, like, well, you joke, but that has happened. And so I always go into it. I say, my music directors, I'm like, this only fills the gaps that I have. So like I play traditional alto sax. I'm not going to use that for an alto sax patch. I'm always going to keep it as traditional and acoustic as possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Just because that's the classical clarinet player in me. I'm going to keep it as acoustic as I can. This is just to fill the gaps that I don't have or the spaces that we need. But I was booked over the summer to play Addams Family, which the Addams Family musical came out not long ago. And then as soon as it was off Broadway and was available for licensing, everybody did Addams Family at the same time. And I heard it was really good. I'm like, I have to play that show. So I booked it, and it calls for soprano sax. I don't play soprano sax. So I told the music director, I'm like, listen, this is what I have. Pretty much like take it or leave it. Yeah. And I say, like, if you want to go with a acoustic traditional player, I totally respect it. I get it. That's fine. But this is what I can do. And he was like, no, let's bring it. Let's do it. We did. And it was great. So fast forward a month later, I'm asked to sub Addams Family at a different production, at a different company. And so again, I go to the music director. This is what I have. This is what I have prepared.
Yeah.
If you don't want to use it, that's fine. Nope, bring it. I bring it. Now, the trombone player is maybe in his 70s, I think. One of the greatest musicians I've ever played with, had a long Broadway career, played with Frank Sinatra, played with the Shirelles. I mean, huge Broadway career. Now in retirement, does community theater. And boy, did I get an earful. And he just like wouldn't let it go. And I very much like, I respect the opinion, but what was interesting,
but like clearly feels threatened by this piece of tech.
Well, and what was interesting is he says, if you're going to do that, we might as well put it in the keyboard. And I said, you're exactly right. That's why. I'm
but now you don't have to,
because we're all going to get replaced by keyboards. So if you can't beat them, join them. Now I'm a keyboard, just like all these other guys that are booking gigs.
Yeah, you found the keyboard that's shaped like you know how to play, and there it is, you know.
And so I go back to that original Addams Family gig that I booked. If I didn't have this, I wouldn't have gotten the job. Now I got the job.
Yeah.
So like, do you guys hear the? It's just that whole thing sounds so familiar to me as far as when we talk about modeling like guitar amps and. Yeah.
Well, like I'm sorry to interrupt you, Derek, but to go into the nitty gritty, his argument, this trombone player, was like, there's no harmonics. There's no harmonics. Like, that's what he kept saying, is it doesn't.
So he didn't like the sound of it.
He didn't like the sound of it. And I will say at the time, I did not own an amp yet. And I was borrowing an amp from the bass player in the pit. So it was a bass amp. So it wasn't quite the right. But I had just gotten it. I'm trying to find the right combo. my opinion, it didn't sound half bad, but that was the argument, is like, it doesn't blend, you don't get the harmonics. And he was getting into the nitty gritty. And I kept saying, I'm like, I'm not arguing that. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
This fills the hole,
This is the camera we have.
Right. And it's that whole, like, this is solving a problem that maybe didn't exist until the solution was presented, right? It's
that's a
not
good way
a
of putting
solution
it,
in search of a problem, but it's creating a convenience for you that is super valuable. Yes, you there, Ty.
Can I like, so here's another thought on that. So like, there's a couple thoughts. So first of all, I'm going somewhere with this. You aren't even wondering yet, but I'm telling you already, I'm going somewhere with this. I really do appreciate a new book smell. And I like the way books feel in my hand. You all know, probably some of you know, I'm not much of a recreational reader. I actually do it socially with my partner. Like, we'll like read together. But if I'm going to read, I personally don't want them taking up a bunch of space. I love having them in a device. I love that I can search it. I love that I get all these advantages of doing that and that sort of thing. And I mean, I know it's kind of an obvious analogy a little bit here, but there is an advantage to this for someone. Like, the harmonics argument is kind of a different track of this whole thing, but for somebody who wants to be able to play all those instruments, but doesn't want them even taking up space or something like that,
or the financial
there is
investment
maybe a
of all those
compromise.
Instruments.
Yeah, well, oh my God, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there are advantages to that, and also the other side of this is, so a while ago. So long ago, probably so many years now ago, I think I mentioned something to you guys that you might remember. This company in Italy called Audio Modeling creates these SWAM, SWAM instruments.
This does not sound familiar, but
so it's physically modeled instruments. They are, with the exceptions of some of their woodwind instruments, it's strings, horns, and woodwinds. And with the exception of some of the woodwinds instruments, there are absolutely zero samples in them whatsoever. It is all, I don't fully understand what physically modeled means.
I
but
understand,
it's not,
yeah.
Do you want to?
Well, no. It's a virtual instrument. So what we're talking about, what they create is software, but they aren't. It's not a sampler or a rompler. If you've heard in that, a rompler being like a synth sampler kind of combo, like it does something like that. So what these people are doing is like pure synthesis, but not like from a sine wave or something. They're like, it's like the sonic equivalent of like what video games are doing with ray tracing, where it's like you have a light source and you measure how it hits surfaces, you assign properties to those surfaces, and that causes the light to react in a realistic way. They're doing that with sound in the computer. They're imagining what those instruments create and allowing the software to sort of do that.
Yeah, they're physically modeling them, like they're modeling the shape of the body of the violin, the cello, the horn, and all of this. And they are programming in with like layers of all the characteristics, things like harmonics and, all of those pieces that might be missing. And I wonder if Kate might have heard of this, if you might find this interesting, I don't know. But it is what I've been using with, I thought about getting some not wood, what am I saying? Some like breath controller type things, but I've been using this multi-dimensional controller thing instead with a keyboard. This is a touche. We talked about this, I think, at some point. I don't know if I mentioned it.
Is it like
on
a
the
pedal?
show years ago, but you can use it as a pedal. I've seen people use it as a pedal on YouTube, but in fact, somebody was playing a guitar and doing this with their foot, and they were getting some pretty darn good saxophone. And this is a while ago, so they've improved it since then. But I do it with my hand off to the side while my other hand is on a keyboard. And
Okay.
many people use a breath controller where you tilt your head. You've got yaw and tilt or whatever, and then you've got breath, and then you've got, of course, velocity on the keyboard. And all of those factors, you can assign them to different parameters for your instrument. And then people do it with instruments. Well, right, but people do it with instruments like yours, Kate. With there are, what was it? The iwi.
The iwi.
I wonder. I think that's probably one of the ones I saw, and I was seriously thinking, because I used to play flute. I was seriously thinking about something like that. Like maybe this would be a better way for me to control these types of instruments. But anyway, I don't want to.
That's all extremely cool. Like, it's just, I feel the same excitement about the tech and all this stuff that I do and get the guitar space, because like I used my Helix at practice last week or the week before, and I hadn't used it in many months, and it had turned into this like just, not, I wasn't going to get rid of it, but it was just sitting around, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, that solves like so many other problems that I'm just not dealing with, but like happily working through right now because I want to use other gear. But for this one Rage Against the Machine song, I need a wah pedal, and I don't have one of those anymore. So guess who's using Helix for this gig, right? So it's that kind of solution thing where you can roll up to a show with one bag, and you've got your 4 instruments in it, but it's only in one physical object. Or I can run in with my Helix bag, and it's all my amps and pedals and patches and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's this technology advancing in all sectors kind of thing again, which is exciting, and I like that. So
right, and then
I'm recording with
these perspectives,
so,
right, of like Tyler making music and being like, well, I want this sound to exist, whether it's a real simulating a real sound or simulating who knows what, and it's typically the expression of MIDI programmed instruments that are the limiting factor most of the time with things like that, right? All the time. Drums, guitar, anything like that. There's like ways of making it really cool. And one of the really cool ways of doing it is to sort of record that MIDI with all of these great expressions in it. And then, the hand of the player is in it. And then likewise, using it in community theater where the audience, I'm sure, was just stomping their feet with how little harmonics they were able to hear.
How digital it sounded.
That's the thing that's the thing that we have to remember. And like, I'll bring it back to a good friend of mine. I used to teach high school marching band, like before, like when I was in college, and it's competitive like any other sport. And so I remember the staff, myself included, we were all just like shit talking other bands and just like going at it. I promise, in the words of Ty, I'm going with this. We were shit talking other bands, and one of the guys on staff.
No, this podcast is all about shit talking bands. Actually, we're right. We've gone back to our home territory.
We were just going, well, they're not. They do this, and that's bullshit. Blah, blah, blah. And one of the guys is just drumming on his drum pad. He's shaking his head. He goes, "It's just band," and him saying, "It's just band" has stuck with me in so many ways. I mean,
God,
Derek, it's the same way that we.
Nice.
It's Derek. It's the same as when we used to say, "Roderick on the line, keep moving and get out of the way." Like it just just stuck. It's just band. So I bring it back to what you just said, Justin, about community theater. I'm like, it's just band. Like it's just
and we see this with guitar gear constantly, where it's like this pedal costs $8,000 and this copy of it costs $89. Does the audience know? Nope.
And are they listening?
Just full stop.
No, because
and are they going to give a shit? No way.
Somebody's singing the song. They're looking at the actors. Now it's like I go to shows here, Broadway in Cincinnati and stuff, and I'm a musician. I look down at stuff that's going on in the pit. I turn my head around because they have a screen with the conductor on it so that the performers can see the conductor in the back of the room. Yeah, the monitor. And I get a kick out of stuff like that from time to time, but I'm also still watching the show. Most of the time I'm paying attention to the singers, and most people don't know that there's even bass guitar in the songs they're listening to until I point it out to them. Most people, maybe not the audience of this podcast, but
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like I said, and I wanted to go back to what Ty said about the books and how they take up space. that's a very legitimate factor to take into pit orchestras, because
Yeah.
we are just crammed into. I mean, I played a show in January where, this is no exaggeration, the pit was in the paint closet. I mean, we are like in the tightest of tight spaces. I can't fit 4 saxophones, especially a Barry sax.
Yeah.
That's coming up to my shoulders. Like,
they're
it
huge.
won't. The footprint doesn't allow it.
So where
does the
able to
audience-
have
said in the chat-
all of it.
Yeah, Eric just mentioned in the chat, I bet you have no interest in strolling in with 7 cases to a pit gig when 5 of them can fit into that one digital instrument.
Oh, but we need the baby
100%.
grand in here. We can't use a keyboard to save, 17 cubic feet.
Going Ben Folds 5 on you right there.
What does where's the
Famous for
audience going to get
doing
more
that.
out of the tonal changes of being able to actually sub these instruments in appropriately or
Right. And I always say, going back to the trombone player, like, I respect the shit out of him as a musician. I respect that opinion. I understand it. And I'm just trying to say, like, if you can't beat him, join him. Because we're all turning into keyboards like that, especially in musical theater.
Right. And
especially with main stage. Like, now I'm a keyboard,
for sure. I think one important detail with if you can't beat them, join them is that's often like has a negative association with it. Like, you've taken the loss and you're now joining the winning team or something, which is not really what you're saying. I think it's more of like got to keep up with the times kind of thing. Like, this is the direction this is all moving in. So if you are not keeping up with it before, like right now, it's not exactly pivotal, but, and we see that because in examples like Trombone Guy, but 20 years from now, what are we talking about? And like, you've seen the theater circuit change so much in the time you've been in it, I'm sure. Like, project that out another 10 or 15 or 20 years. Like, it's all going to be so different, and you have to be ready for that change, and you have to be, because you're going to get left behind, and that's like, you have to join up to stay in the pack, right? It's not that you're taking the L. So
what's the Ty? Do you remember that keyboard thing that you have that doesn't? It's a controller in the shape of a keyboard.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that I used to use. Seaboard. There's a Seaboard block.
Somebody Rolly?
Seaboard block. Yeah, Rolly's the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can show that to you too. It's right here. I haven't plugged it in a long time. Unfortunately, this is a batteried device, which I have learned that I haven't like run out of batteries to my knowledge, but I honestly haven't charged it in a long time, which, as those of us who understand lithium-ion batteries know, oops, it might be dead. So it's like, I don't really like battery devices where it's like it's not a removable battery. But so this doodad here is it is squishy, and you've got, I didn't plan on saying it like that. That was kind of weird. You've got pressure, and then you've also got this dimension, and of course you can rung, and you can do a glissando along the top. You can do a glissando over it, but you're going to get jumpy because the
whole thing's like a touch controller, right?
Yeah, and so you can get a lot of different dimensions out of it for playing even SWAM instruments, the physically modeled instruments from audio modeling, and that's what I was doing. And there's one thing that this does better than the touche, and that is glissandos. Like, if I want to have my strings do like a counterpoint glissando past each other, which I do have it do in one song, this is the only way I'm really going to do it well.
Yeah, because otherwise it would have the delineation of each note, right? Like, it would have, if you were to do that on a traditional keyboard, it would have like the steps. You would hear those steps.
Well, I can sort of do it, but the way I do it with a touche is you have to, you strike to do a legato note versus or a portamento or something. You have to like go from where the notes like gliding into the next one, but not like a full-on glissando. Maybe actually Kate could probably define it better, but I don't know, maybe. But if you sort of overlap with velocity, like a slower velocity, and it takes a whole lot of skill, and then there's a limit to how much of a range you can do in that. I'm over-explaining at this point.
That's
but with
interesting,
this,
though.
I can do like a full double octave glissando between notes and
Yeah.
without having to like program
and it's
it
just there in the
painstakingly.
computer, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I kind of bring it up because, like, as we're talking about all this, even the keyboard players they have like there's
advancement in
here's
that
a get with the
range.
time, right? So if your instrument was piano and it was like, well, shoot, this band doesn't have a trumpet to cover, or I don't know if that, I mean, whatever it is, like getting a piano-like controller with the layout you're used to, but then it has these extra expressiveness stuff. Although, I mean, it's different because that's not the expressiveness that a piano player learns to use, but they can, and
But
they
somebody
could
like
cover
me
other
comes along
instruments.
who's never played a piano, who doesn't know what they're doing. And anytime I'm near one and I push a key, I wiggle it, and because that's what I do on guitar, and it doesn't
what you
do
can
anything.
do with
this.
Right. So like that's
You get-
exactly what that's for. Yeah. And there's pitch and mod wheels like professionals use, but look at me, like I just push it and like wiggle my finger.
It's way more
I'm
intuitive
so
to do
ingrained.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you can do it with two hands at the same time.
yeah,
this.
that's
That
cool.
you can't do it with a mod wheel. And I can't do
Right.
it with my touche. But I don't really need to. I'm playing melodic instruments, so with this
So
thing.
a second ago, Kate, you mentioned teaching marching band, and this is one of the things that we'd said we would talk about, which is metronome
Right.
stuff.
This whole thing started because of the metronome thing, and my recording's like 47 minutes running now.
Yeah, so like just in the interest of time,
See,
I do
that
want to
digital
like change
sax
gears.
gets people talking.
Yeah, but like that's
is
just
the-
I
this is
love
it.
that conversation because we have that talk about guitar stuff constantly, and there's still people who are like, "Man, I can tell the difference, and it doesn't sound as good." But that's not the point,
Doesn't
right?
fucking matter,
there's,
man.
There's
Right.
so many more points.
Well,
But anyway,
yeah, and I
as
was
far
going
as-
to say to just like not to derail you, Derek, but just to like wrap that
Yeah.
whole thing up. And what I think we're all saying is like we all love traditional acoustic as much as anybody else. And
100%.
like I said, I'm always going to play my acoustic horns that I have over that. It's just this is where things are going, and it just fills holes and it's convenient in
and
so
it makes
many
you
ways.
a more like it just makes you a more valuable player, like a more valuable hire. So anyway, switching gears to metronome and click track talk, because I do want to make sure we cover that. The one thing that I didn't mention this to you on the phone, Kate, but marching band and click track is like the thing. I remember hearing the Norwalk band click track across town during summer practice and stuff like that, because it's so
can I
intense.
ask
And I just want to like,
question?
yeah.
Just in case there's like maybe someone in the room that like doesn't know what a click track is.
Oh, a click track is just a
I
metronome.
think
That's all I mean.
and the reason I ask is because the term click track and what you just described, I think are actually I think we're thinking two different things. So what do you mean
It's
when
a
you say click
recording.
track?
You call it a click track.
When a recording, there is a track that is playing a click, and you're playing along to that click. It's static. It's in the thing, and it doesn't get recorded to the tape. It's just for you to play with during your recording performance.
So a metronome.
A metronome, it's a metronome, but it's within the software recording. It's a metronome. The device is a different thing. Like that's,
If I was
Okay.
really
So
trying to
with
draw a
you.
distinction, I think I would say that I don't care what anybody calls it. Like I will sometimes say 3 or 4 different words for it to a band in the beginning to figure out which is the one that they are going to be into, right?
tempo track.
Tempo, or is it a tempo track? Is it a click track? Is it a metronome? But if if I'm recording multi-channel audio, then I can dedicate a track to the click, the metronome, and it could have program changes in it. It could have meter changes. It could have whatever.
Okay.
And that's going to stay with the track. So if I have things like meter changes, I'm going to program those into my click track before I begin.
All right, I'm
and
with you.
They're
Okay.
consistent. But yes, it's a
effectively
metronome.
the
It's the
same.
same thing.
So I'm just like really interested in the usage of click track and of metronome, because like in my space, I only use it for recording time pretty much. I have used it to play live and rehearse with, but typically that's not the case. It's mostly a in the studio tool to be on the grid and to be in step with everybody else at the same time. Are you doing metronome stuff live?
So are we talking marching band?
All of the above, I guess.
That's a loaded question.
Or is it a human? If it's a human conductor, does the conductor have a metronome?
Yeah.
Do they have
Okay,
15 seconds of metronome and then it drops? You know what I mean? Just to get them started.
So a lot of times with so like let's just take that marching band example and then we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah.
But like in marching bands, your marching band is performed on a football field. So quite a large space, right? And so we use that track to sometimes we'll play it all the way through when the kids are rehearsing. It's never performed with. I'll just put that out there. When we go out to compete, we never use it in performance. It's only for rehearsal. But a lot of times we just start and stop it. So we say, okay, 8 clicks off the block and then we go. So the kids will just hear the metronome 8 times. The drum major, the conductor will take the 8 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it turns off. And the conductor takes it from there. A lot of times it's not left on in rehearsal. It's not left on while the kids are playing because the football field is such a large space. Depending on the formations you're making, you can get a sound issue. You can get a sound tear, right? And so a lot of times also too,
I never thought of that.
Somebody with that metronome usually follows the center snare player. The drum line stays as a unit throughout the field. They usually stay behind the center snare. But now what happens when the center snare is on the 20-yard line over there and the rest of the band is on the 20-yard line over there? There's a huge discrepancy. Or do you keep them in the center on the 50 with the drum major, but now the drummers are over? You know what I mean? So we often just start. It's usually a start and stop kind of thing. Now,
it's impractical otherwise. Yeah.
The consideration of physical space for metronome is something I never really thought about. That's super interesting. It makes perfect sense. But
and marching band.
We were talking. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in the episode that we talked about metronome stuff for the guitarists among us, basically that range of music. We had talked a lot about like the feel and stuff like that. And so in a marching band scenario, when you've got that 8 clicks up front for reference, right? How is, I guess it's the drum major that's keeping it going in time. Like, does the band have to be concerned with drift and like pushing or pulling tempo? Because if a rock band drops a click, it's going to speed up probably.
Well, it's like the question of like what is supposed to happen and then what actually happens, right? So what's supposed to happen is that it's everything is supposed to come from the drum major. So if the drum major slows down, the drum major is the conductor. If they slow down, you slow down. Like everything is on the drum major. But what it really comes down to is that center snare player and that drum line. It's on them. Yeah. So if
that player's not referencing the drum major, then too bad, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's when it could. Yeah,
but they hear each other, and I've been there. I know, like you're not always, especially when you're learning the music. You're not. At least I wasn't when I was in high school. I wasn't always right, and sometimes the band you'll end up with 2 different things. And I remember, but I mean, the answer is the drum major is supposed to be the boss, right? So if we detect that we're off, we need to justify to the drum major, and the drum major's probably already noticed. And I remember times where I could see on my drum major's faces or something. And then we would also have side conductors too, because like the field is so wide. So the drum, we'd have 4 drum majors or something, and usually a couple of them would be spread out so that you always had an easy line of sight, right? And they're like frantically gesturing or like something. So, you're doing the thing normal. I'm just like, this is my memory. Like we're doing the thing normal. Something starts to fall out. The whole trumpet section is in a different place, and the trumpet is so fucking loud that there's no way they're going to notice, right? And so then the drum major's suddenly he's going like this,
Yes.
And then he gets it, and then it comes back, so.
It's just like the age-old battle. But then what's interesting is, so go from marching band, let's fast forward a few months to winter percussion. Have you seen a winter percussion show before?
No.
I don't know.
So winter percussion is very cool and very popular. Winter percussion is basically marching band inside in a gym with just a drum line and a
That's got to be the
front.
loudest place on the earth.
It's painfully loud. Yeah, it's extremely loud. But it's a drum line that moves, does a whole show, and a front
Wear
ensemble with,
earplugs.
you know, marimbas, vibraphones,
yeah.
drum kit, all of that kind of stuff in
Yeah.
front. There is no drum major for winter percussion. There's no leader.
Okay.
There's no conductor. Everything
It's an organism.
is based on whoever starts the show. So if it's a marimba solo to start the show,
Hmm.
I really hope that kid has some good tempo because they're starting us off.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, the excitement of playing live always, at least in my experience, always results in playing too fast, and you're so jazzed to be there, and you're
And also,
having a good time, and yeah,
Also, a lot of times I say kids because that's who does winter percussion for the most part, but kids associate loud with fast. So if it's a
Right.
section of the show
Not just
that's
kids.
supposed to be loud and intense, they want to play faster. And if it's quiet, they want to play slow. It's like those don't go together
Yeah.
at all, you know?
Hmm.
But
So
I-
do 34-year-olds
I had
and everybody.
yeah.
I
So
had an interesting experience with click tracks in I played Mean Girls the musical a couple months ago, and it was at a high
Not know that was
school,
a
so
thing.
it was
oh yeah,
what's that?
I did not know that was a thing, and
They did a
Okay.
remake, and the remake's a musical. I thought it was pretty good. Anyway,
I will say this: when I was first, Mean Girls is like the new Addams Family. It's the new most popular show. Everybody's doing it because it's so fetch.
yeah.
Sorry, I had to. It's when I was first hired for it, I'm like, oh God, I listened to the soundtrack. I'm like, oh gosh, because the classical clarinet player in me, I'm a purist. I will say I will play the shit out of that show again because it was really fun to play. However, going back to this click track discussion, it was students on stage, hired professionals in the pit. Now we had 4 keyboards for this show, and you can buy the main stage programming for all of your keyboard parts, so you don't have to program all of your sound patches.
oh wow, okay, awesome.
So
It's a
there
good business.
So there was this one keyboard patch that when you click one key on the piano, it plays the note twice. Right? It plays it as
Hmm.
16th notes or so. I can't.
So it's like a
I was
delay.
across
It's like
the
a
pit.
da-da.
Like
So
like a
yeah,
repeat,
so
yeah.
you're playing 8 notes, but you're hearing
Okay,
Okay, yeah. It's a delay pedal.
or
gotcha.
it was like every
For,
quarter note
for
or
the audience at
something.
home, it's a delay pedal.
For the audience sitting right here, I didn't know what was called that. I don't know.
No, that's what guitarists would. That's how a guitarist would
Yeah.
do that. Is they'd use a delay pedal. So that's why that's funny. Is because
Okay.
every other time we've done this show, it's been a guitar podcast.
Sure.
I love
if you
this.
say so.
I'm having fun.
But it's not in the I don't know that it is the same as a delay because it's
It's not doing it the
the
same way.
no, the tempo you basically
Well-
you don't set the tempo of that. It
I
was
see.
pre
Okay.
set for you. So that being said, if we were not at exactly 126 beats per minute,
Mhm.
that patch
Right.
wasn't going to line up.
It would be da-da,
So-
da-da, da-da. It would
Classic-
Be, yeah, gaps.
classic
Yes.
delay
It would
in the
be,
live show.
and it would just
issue.
start tearing,
Mhm.
just start chucking and start tearing. And so we had a hell of a time during rehearsal of just like, even if we're one metronome click off,
Hmm.
this one patch is going to blow this whole part of the show out. And we almost took it
Oh
out.
yeah.
We ended up figuring it all out, but I was like, oh, that is a problem I've never experienced before. But
Yeah, I mean, I've run into that with delay pedals doing like dotted eighth repeats.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're doing that, like in the live setting, particularly when the band is rushing because they're excited and having fun, the dotted eighth repeat is like, hey, everybody, this is where we're all supposed to be. And it's,
Right.
it's this like huge spotlight on that problem. But I also want to like make sure we cover Ty's notes because you came in
Ty
here saying
came
you
with
had show
notes,
notes.
and we were just kicking,
Yeah, so
kicking
I
that
like-
can.
I wrote my thoughts down because I had a whole bunch of comments and questions as I was listening. What was this, like 6 weeks ago?
It was a long
Something
time.
like
I mean,
that,
the
yeah.
original
It's a while
discussion
back.
was
It's a while
generally
ago
like
now.
the value
Let
of
me
that,
find
and
it.
like when a musician comes to my. This is why I kind of thought of it as a topic, right? When musicians come to my studio and they're not used to doing that, and I kind of try to I impress upon them the importance of.
We talked about it in episode 261, and we're doing 265 right now.
It's not that bad.
And it's every other week that you do it.
Every 2 weeks, yeah.
So, yeah. So that's how I was trying to figure out the math. Something
So
like
yeah.
Anyway,
To kind of re-intro how this started. Yeah, but so what notes did you make? Because I know you guys had a lot of thoughts. What notes did you make, Ty?
Okay. Well, so first of all, I was going to say earlier, there was a segue I was going to try to offer to what we were talking about with the, and I feel like it's worth saying that when, the don't, if you can't beat him, join him sort of thing. This is the way history is going. This is the way of the future more. So there was a time when a metronome either didn't exist or it was a new thing that, Beethoven was experimenting with and that sort of thing. I forget who it was, but somebody, and right, probably Kate remembers, but like the origin, no, maybe not.
what are you
Way
talking
to
about?
put me on blast on my music history.
How old do you think she is?
You don't remember? You never talked to him about that?
Listen, I started teaching kindergarten music. I never looked back. I don't know.
But like,
Listen, kids, here's the invention of the metronome.
I can imagine people at a certain time when metronomes started becoming popularly used by musicians for the first time. I'm sure they were around a long time before that, but then when they were actually starting to get used all the time and people were playing to it and everybody was probably snobby, like, oh, you don't bring that around or something like that. And it's like,
Too high
this
tech.
is just the thing about technology, right? And, and that's right. And I was listening to some podcast at some point that was like, gosh, which show was that? I always forget, but they were talking about how the actual time, the actual tempo that we know a lot of classical music to be played at may be completely off from what they played. The adagio or whatever Adante, whatever, I can't think of the words. That
Do you mean like the
very different
words
Allegro?
for ranges of tempo?
Well, Allegro, yeah. I guess I should have gone with that one. That one's easy.
Oh, interesting.
but-
Okay. Instead of a number of how many beats per
Right.
Well,
minute.
because we've assigned them
Right.
to a number now, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Right.
They may have been
Oh,
a
I
different
see.
number.
Okay.
There was a point, right? I mean, there must have been some point in history where nobody thought to create a scale that was the same, right? I mean, there was a time when we didn't have clocks that would survive it all the way across the ocean, right? So timekeeping as
the
it
question is
happens
too,
to
like,
music.
Who decided what those numbers would be associated with
Yeah,
what?
because I remember
Tempo
my
marking.
metronome, my actual metronome that's in my closet right now has a dial and there's like a thing on it that's like from here to here is Allegro.
Right.
And I'm just like, why?
I have that
Why
too.
is it not?
Who
Why is
says?
it not that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and why is it not that precise?
Well, because
Like, this
they
is like a
eventually
12
they decided.
BPM
Back
range
then
or
it
something.
wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was like play it sort of fast or whatever. There were margin notes, but like eventually we realized, well, now we do actually have clocks that are steady, and we should just decide what things are. And so somebody put a number on it, right, at some point. And it doesn't really matter where they put the number, but probably that range reflects kind of what we're talking about here, which is like back then, Allegro might have tended to be faster and may have shifted over time kind of thing. At this point, it won't anymore because we have these sort of like, we've all agreed what these words mean sort of thing, and therefore they are words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a bunch of things I'm going to try to maybe I can try to
Hit me.
I don't know, jump around in here a little bit.
We can
but
just like run through them like bullets. I don't care.
Yeah.
they are bullets. So I'm
lay it
going
on
to.
me.
Thank you very much. No, but I've got at least one of them. I'm going to lay some bullets on you.
Okay.
I'm gonna one of these has something I am really curious to know if it was one of the things that Kate was shouting at the radio about. So we'll see. But so like, okay, kind of going in chronological order the way they were in the show, because that's how I wrote these down. So
Yeah.
you guys had your discussion about, Derek was talking about using drum loops instead of the metronome, which I think is, I totally pretty much totally agreed with basically everything that you guys were saying. And I felt like there were a few points that weren't quite added so first of all, yes, great strategy, but I think that I find that it may be risky to do it exclusively because, as like Derek stated, I think it was Derek stated in the show, you've got to be ready to play to a click, of course. But once, what did I say here to myself? Once timing and skill develops with the drum loop practice, it's important to maybe go back to the metronome and develop that skill anyway, because
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like understanding the way that strange drumming patterns and syncopations and like even strumming patterns on guitar and everything interact with a steady click is really important. And what I mean by that is
lyrical
like
passages.
Yeah, that too, because like I have some songs that I will play, like I'm maybe getting ready to record, and I will play this certain syncopation that seems really straightforward to me, and I know where the pocket is, but as soon as I'm playing to a click, it feels weird.
You have to learn how it hits.
But I need to play to the click to record it tightly, obviously, and the click throws me off. And playing to, I haven't even developed the percussion part. I don't know what drum part I want yet. And then, of course,
you can do that to
translates
hear like how the thing you want to do should interface with the click.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or is not currently.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I do the drum loop thing, I also tend to leave the click running as well, just for that, like I said in the show or in that episode, more reference points to play against. And so I think
a good idea.
if you can mute the drum occasionally and make sure that you're literally on track with that remaining click alone, that's the real practice. I think the thing with drum loops for me was when metronome alone was becoming really frustrating. And when I was new to metronome alone, it was too much of a spotlight on how bad I was at following a metronome. I wasn't really focusing on what I should have been focusing on. I was too distracted by how off time I was.
I think to Tyler's point about that specifically is like, it's not necessarily that you're bad at it, though, even because there are certain parts, and I can remember thinking about lyrical passages and stuff. There was a time in my life where I'd never sung and played guitar before. And then I was like, I'm going to do this. And it was like, holy shit, I have to go 1/4 tempo and study my own hand and go, where does the word hit on my right hand? And that's what I studied. And you're sort of doing that a little bit with the metronome, right? Like finding where does my lyrical passage, be it words or not, land within this, because it needs to sound flowy. And that goes back to the main point here of like people who have the impression that a click track is going to stop the flow of your music. They're just not putting their music over it correctly, or they're locking in. And then there's a danger in that. But so like my first move, if somebody is having trouble, is you add more information, like you're talking about, add the eighths, and then add the 16ths if you need to the click, to the metronome. Just get and then if that's really weird, because that sounds friggin' weird, then it's like, okay, well, let's maybe just throw a drum set in here, because that's even more information, because instead of them all just being different volume of snaps or whatever, they're in actual drums. But there's risks in that if you're producing a song, because you can get attached to the sound of that drum loop, which has happened many times, many times before. Yeah. So especially like when you say, but I haven't even thought about the percussion for this song yet, then I think it's extremely risky to go throwing a drum loop in your song.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not always the right answer. I want to reiterate that it's a thing for that, helping break down the barrier to entry if you're new to metronome.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's a great yeah, like I said, very much agreed with
Super much agree.
basically everything that was said. And like Justin, I remember when I was actually starting to sing and play at the same time and having that struggle, you gave me that tip to think of, what you had said that I don't think you said just now is thinking about singing and playing the guitar as one instrument, thinking of it as one part. And eventually they can break apart again. Because now I'm
Hopefully.
at the point where it's like,
I'm off with that.
I can syncopate my lyrics differently than I used to because I'm used to doing it. And
Yeah.
See, I can't. This is so
play with
interesting to
that,
me
but-
because I'm not a singer, like very, very decidedly not. And I can't often even speak when playing guitar. I have to stop doing that and then talk to somebody if they're asking me a question or something. There's a block between my brain and my mouth. But weirdly, at gigs, it's fine. I don't know what that's about. At a gig, I can just be like doing my friggin' thing and talking to Andy, and it's like no big deal. And
Okay,
I don't know.
question.
What?
Not that you would do this. I'm just curious if you're playing. Although I guess you'd probably be playing some kind of lick or something. But like, what if you spoke in tempo with what you were playing? Could you get the words out?
Haven't tried that, but that's an interesting
I know
idea.
that'd be really dorky. Like I with a dog or whatever. Like that would be so
Right,
dorky
right.
of someone to talk that way. But I'm just curious, like if the words would come out if you did that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because when I'm playing guitar, there's the tempo of like the whole thing that's happening, right? The machine that's going on, that's not me playing my instrument. Then there's also the part that is me playing my instrument. There's the haptic feedback of striking the string. And like you can feel that if you're on or off time, right? There's that. Then there's like the value of intensity with that and stuff. So like I'm factoring all of that stuff in way more than I am about, sometimes I'll stop playing guitar and be like, because I was like too focused.
Okay,
because you weren't taking a breath.
I wasn't taking deep
weren't
enough
breathing.
breaths. Yeah.
speculating a little bit, but I think this is legitimate, like neurology. There's a lot of overlap, but there are parts of our brains that are dedicated to certain things, and our brains really can only
Communication.
do one thing at a time. And if you multitask, you're just good at switching quickly, right? And I think like right there, I speculate that like when you're really into the music, let's just take this thing like I can't speak. I find that I can't speak until I stop is like the part of your brain that's in charge of speaking, that's in charge of, let's say, expressing yourself, is busy on the
That's
guitar.
more it, I
You know
think.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And-
That's deep right there.
And then,
expression part.
but don't you think it's right? Like I think I'm right. And
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
And when you get to a certain, like Eric is saying, like at a gig, suddenly you find that your focus is, you said stronger or different somehow or something. Like there's some part of it where the automation is kicking in and you're no longer like having to decide what to say on the guitar. And so you can just do it. I mean, likewise, like when I got really practiced at something, I'd be playing guitar and singing a song, and I would get near the end of the song and realize that I'd been thinking about something else while I was doing that. And it was like, I'd come back and realize, oh shoot, we're in the last chorus, and I didn't mess up. But it was just,
It's like that. You ever been driving and then you realize you're driving?
it's right like that. Yeah, exactly. But we can wrap that back up into tempo too, because I think like getting enough used to a tempo track that is taking over that part of it for you, your brain isn't focusing on, am I playing this in time anymore? And you feel where the push and pull of the song and the lyrical nature of whatever you're playing is landing on that tempo. And it makes it easier. And that's the point that I'm trying to get people to when they haven't tried playing with it yet. And it's like every drummer that's gotten good at, that didn't play the tempo track and then got used to it and then was just like, I could just play anything I want now. I'm free. I'm free of having to keep my own tempo. And they become better at keeping their own tempo because of that. And it's very strange, but.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was going to go back to another follow-up thing I had on this like major topic, but
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, go?
Do it.
Okay.
I was chiming in really quickly to say that my baby is now awake and crying.
Uh-oh.
no.
So that's going on. But it's okay. Go ahead.
He's trying to express himself. Give him a guitar, he'll shut up.
I guess. Sometimes if he's really raging, I'll bring him in here and he'll hit my guitars on the wall back here. And it helps, but it doesn't last.
Yeah.
So,
well, just put a guitar in his hand and he won't be able to think what to say. Anyway, so I wrote another thing, and it took me a second to remember, I think, what I meant by this. So because this is on the same major topic of the drum loops and everything, but I'm just going to read what I wrote. Honestly, I wrote too much. So when I play in odd time signatures, which it's a thing I liked odd time signatures too much. It happens a lot. But just changing syncopations frequently or something like that. I get thrown off by the click the first several times, or way more than several times really. But there's this trick that I found that I can kind of do where you can record a reference take, no click at all, and get the vibe of that part right. And then record a human click that may be imperfect over it, and then listen back to the part and hear where that interaction of the human click is.
Okay,
I hope this is making sense, because it's you can't do it with a real click because that's going to throw you off and everything, and you need the human click to be in time with your playing.
Yeah.
But you can get this human click that has the variation that your playing had it, the variation in tempo that your playing had in it. And then you can hear where that downbeat hits just after that upstroke or just after that other thing. And then you can start to hear the click in it where it's supposed to be, so that when you actually play it to a click, you're expecting that click to hit in between those two notes. And
I
it's
see
just
what you're saying. Yes,
there it is.
okay.
I know I'm in time.
You've created the study object that you can then observe where your thing falls in the tempo.
Yeah.
I like
need
that.
to do it a lot more, but it's something I kind of got excited about that idea. I was actually,
that's cool.
Dad and I were trying to work on just a cover of a song, and I was thinking we might use an idea like that to get this tempo thing. But that relates to another thing I want to talk about, so I'm going to save that one. And the last thing about the drummer part, about playing to a drum beat, if you're the drummer, that plan doesn't really... So for the drummers out there, that doesn't work. But
hey, it's not called the drum control. All right.
Yeah, well, it's the sax control tonight.
Sax control today.
So I wanted to talk about the idea of using more subdivisions, which is also a trick that Derek brought up, which I have used a lot. In fact, I feel like in our old band, we used to always want a lot of subdivisions as a band.
Yeah,
we
I
liked
remember that.
a double time tempo, and we knew that 60 BPM was actually, or 120 was actually 60. We understood that, and we were always doing that.
But when communicating tempos to each other, we were in those higher numbers. It's exactly for that reason I mentioned, is just to have more points of reference, to hear it in the gap when I'm not playing, to make sure that I'm going to come in, even if it's just strumming pattern stuff with sustained chords, I find that helpful.
Yeah, and I really do too. The thing, the however that I had though, is that, so I think depending on depending on the quick subdivisions, can absolutely be the type of crutch that leads me to lose the tempo that is wrong for the song, or I said lose, to actually choose the tempo that is wrong for the song. I was reading two different words there that I wrote here. So literally, I have had this happen several times, and because I'm wearing all the hats, doing all the recording, this has taken so much of my time. I will record my song, and then I have to completely re-record the song or accept some weirdness and stretching the time a little bit, because, which I remember you guys were talking about how it's Justin, you'll do that sort of thing, but Kevin Billingsley probably never, ever would, or something like that. You were speculating, but and it's like it's like if I play to a really fast click, it may make me feel a different kind of energy for the song. And then I take the clicking away and I'm like, I forget which direction it ends up in, but it either feels too slow or too fast. And I couldn't tell.
I would venture to guess it's too fast. It feels that way.
Clicks.
But yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point.
This is relating a little bit to the comment earlier about the energy of the song. If it's a fast part, or no, if it's a loud part, you'll tend to play it faster, and the reciprocal. So,
but this is actually something that I think might be really interesting to people. Maybe people have heard about this. This is like the very reason why I especially am a big fan of this pro tip I picked up from this guitar educator guy I followed called bury the click. Have you guys heard about that phrase?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, you can kind of figure out what it means.
Does this mean very quiet?
It's not just that. So you practice with the click as quiet, just loud enough that you can hear it. But you also practice with fewer clicks. So in fact, there's this other idea. Well, I'll define this first. So bury the click, quiet. So just quiet enough so that as you're playing, you only hear the click when you miss, when you're getting off of the pocket. And that way you get used to how the part sounds without the click. But then you have this adjustment that pulls you in when you get off. And practicing that way a lot, I think, is a really awesome idea. And I've been trying to do it a little bit more when I don't always practice to a click, like Derek said, but I have been doing it some because I really need it.
This would be something to work up to. Yeah. This would be something to work up to or back from. Like if you're studying a song and you're not getting it and you need those extra subdivisions or a drum beat, then we start to go, okay, now I've figured it out. Now I need to bring myself back. Let's take out the subdivisions now that I know it, and let's back them off. Let's give me half notes or maybe just give me bars. Work your way backward from there.
Can I ask a question to all three of you? Why do you all practice with a click? Is it to get the steady beat in your body, or is it because you are practicing a passage that you have to get in the hands, or a different reason?
For me, it's sometimes the latter. It's mostly like if I'm writing a part, I don't start with a click at all. Click comes later as we close in on recording time, basically. I think like that's when I dial it in and I need to pick a tempo because I'm going to start laying down a track. It's the, I tap out what feels close and then it's like, I just zero in from there. But it's kind of to get the computer, right, to get my drum track and all that stuff into step with me. Because like I have a feel of what I'm going for when I'm working on a pedal demo or some gear demo or something like that. So it's not so much like learning other music. When I'm doing covers and stuff, I'm learning other music. I'm playing along to the original recording, which is like the drum track thing. I may have to jump now. Jack's having something going on, I think. But
dang.
I can step away and y'all can keep going. I got to figure out what's happening here. So he's not usually awake at this time. This is a problem.
Yeah. Feel free.
Okay. Maybe I'll be back. I don't know. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
I've got two answers to that. So I mean, first of all, the recommendation of this bury the click technique is mainly to develop the chops, to like become a better player. And if I could become a better player, like I have like a reflux disease that messes up my voice these days, and I'm not counting on being able to perform live because I can't trust my voice on a given day to be what I need it to be. But if I were to play live, I would need to be a way better musician than I am. And I still need to be, because when I'm recording, it's slow. I'm not a good enough musician. I'm not tight enough. I don't play enough. I'm too busy. And when I do get around to recording, it'd be really good if I could be tighter than I am because of the second reason, which is if I'm going to play to a click when I'm recording, which I damn well am, based on like for the same reasons Justin and Derek talked about in the show before, I need to not be thrown off by it. And I just don't want to be doing as much. I mean, this is the first point again. I just don't want to be doing as much editing and adjusting to get the right performance down and that sort of thing. That was a little bit rambling. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't usually practice. I don't always do that right away. But if I'm practicing something, it's going to get assigned a tempo basically near when I'm working up to like recording it or something like that. Generally speaking, and I mean, I think it was that way when we were playing as a band as well. You know, we didn't have early on pulling out a metronome into the practice space, but when it was time to like go, okay, let's start to work these out, like we knew we wanted to use it as part of the recording process. I don't want to do a recording if I can help it, you know, unless there's some part of the song where you just can't. I want to have a tempo there. It makes tons of things easier in the recording process. Not just, you know, faking choruses and copying and pasting things around. There's a lot more to it that still is like, you know, different than that. But I also, so like more recently, I sometimes my wife and I will do like a cover song, and we start working it up, and then we need to agree upon a tempo and a key. She sometimes makes me change the key of things. So it's like, I start practicing something up, and I'm like, okay, I think I've got this generally. Let's sit down and let's try to sing it. And it's like, she's got a different idea in her head about how fast it should be or something like that. And then it's like, okay, well, let's figure out where we want to be. I go, okay, that feels good. And now I have a number. So the next time I go to practice before I bring it back to her, I've reassigned my brain to this number, to this beats per minute.
Right.
So those are times when I use it. Really, mostly recording, but I will do it for that. Yeah. But I'm not going to keep that going all the time. I'm not going to pull that metronome out every time we play together. I do want to have myself be generally in the zone and make sure that I'm used to not walking away with the tempo or not dragging when she's not expecting me to or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, like what purpose it serves for you, you know what I mean, as musicians, because when I practice, the purpose of me using a metronome is because I'm trying to get something in the hands, right, like a fast lick or a fast run, because I'm not recording. We don't everything I do is only live. I don't do any kind of studio recording or anything, so that doesn't come up. But two, like all the tempos are not up to me. It's always up to the music director, and it's up to the cast. Sometimes you're double cast, and so one lead might take something different than the next lead. So using the metronome in practice isn't for my purpose is not the same as your purpose, which is just an interesting difference. But
it's like you're going for like a technical accuracy through
like I got to get the right note, this 16th note passage in time at the right time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But have you ever tried, and Ty made me think of this when you said you guys would have your tempo more on the eighth note, right? Rather than the quarter note, you'd be double.
I think somebody else might have said that, but
we just have a lot of subdivisions
or something. Yeah.
Subdivision.
So
okay,
it's on both. Yeah.
It's on both, right? On the eighth note. So have you ever had it just on the upbeat, like practicing so that you're only hearing the click on the upbeat?
Have you?
Or
that gets to another thing I was going to talk about, actually.
16th note, you know, just changing where the click is rather than getting all the clicks, rather than just having the downbeat clicks.
I feel like that's leading toward, like, you know, when we have these drum loops instead, because we're giving more feedback to make it easier. Having the metronome on the upbeat is like is like that. It's like changing. Oh, now I'm playing a James Brown song all of a sudden, or something like that. Might totally change the feel of the song. What is your thought on that, Ty? You said it was going to lead you somewhere.
Well, I think that was a good time to insert it. I guess is just that the other big, probably biggest tempo practice tip that I picked up from that guitar music educator guy. Was, first of all, he got me into this app called Tempo, which is a really fantastic metronome app. And he has you set it up with a bunch of like practice things. You can set up your own set lists and that sort of thing with it. It times you, all of this stuff. But I've got a practice set list, and it's got metronome, which is just like one for no accented clicks, which I was going to talk about here because you guys talked about that too. And there is also this idea of, he calls it a table. There's the four-legged table. There's three-legged table, two-legged table, one-legged table. And there's one-legged table one is the only beat is on the one. But it is visually bars. Keeping the rest of it. So you're not actually, so you practice that way, practice the same part with this.
Oh, yeah.
Two-legged table
click on the two.
Practice the same part with this, and so on. And then, of course, you can do all these, and you could have it auto cycle where like it will go one, here, let me play this one. Did it, yeah, sorry,
I can see it.
Oh, it's actually not. Sorry, it's actually sorry, and I'm at 60 BPMs too, so it's super slow. But I think I did something to these. This one's in 5/4. Anyway, I'm not going to go any deeper into that. But it's been a while since I used them. But yeah, and you could at a different tempo, you could have that be on the and or the E and the that sort of thing instead of always on a downbeat too. And all of that I think is really cool.
This is striking me like
useful.
The way just like practicing scales, like just all the scales. You know what I mean? As a way of just ingraining the instrument inside of you. This is striking me this way is like, okay, let's try with this tempo. Let's try it with this other subdivision. Now I'm going to only hear the bars. Now I'm going to only hear the two.
It's exercise.
Right.
You know?
And you're going to get used to how your performance is going to lay into all those things, so you can become immune to it almost, right? Now anything can happen, and I'm going to be still having that tempo locked in. That's a stress test. You're like stress training yourself.
Yeah. So like on that note, I think you guys in that show had also talked about not using an accented beat at all in the metronome. So instead of, I think maybe you mentioned that, Justin, I definitely do that. I mostly do it when I have time signature changes.
Right.
Sometimes just with odd time signatures in general, like if I'm playing in 7 or 5, but usually it's a real problem where I'm recording and I could create a tempo map in Logic in my DAW, but instead it's more trouble than it's worth to do that, to say at this measure change this, especially because sometimes I'm not even settled that it's going to be on that measure yet. I might remove a part of the song, and then I have to do all this other work of changing my tempo map. So instead what I do, I'm saying tempo map, I mean time signature map. Importantly,
well, it's on the same ruler, isn't it? But in
right,
the
but
software.
I'm not changing tempo.
Yeah. I understand.
They
You're
have
changing
two different
meter.
tracks in Logic.
Okay. Well, you're changing. Well, actually, they do in Pro Tools too. But you're changing meter. But yeah.
Yeah, they're both up at the top.
Yeah.
But it's like I will, instead of doing a time signature map, it's like more important in most cases to just have it be 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 through the entire song, and then I can at least get it down. And then maybe later, once I've settled the arrangement, then I might time signature map it so that I can actually do some other things with that. But
I do that with recordings as well. Like I will, unless there's an actual tempo change. If there is signature changes, I'll almost always just turn off the accent and say, okay, we're just going to roll with this. It gives us flexibility. Like if the band's take is really good, but they fell off the beat by 1 or whatever, I can probably like there'll be a measure where they're a little funny and I might time stretch that part back into shape. Or maybe hopefully I don't need to, and we just get through the thing. And at that point, the only reason to sort of fix where the measure lines are lining up in the software is for my own benefit when I'm editing and mixing. And so I can follow along with the bars, which I do like to do. And it's like, metal songs or whatever, sure, like there'll be a part where it goes halftime, and I just want my bars to line up because that's going to help all kinds of things visually with what I'm doing.
Definitely.
And then there's a bar of 2 here for some reason, and then we're back into our normal tempo, and the band thinks we pause for a second here, and I'm like, I hear it and go, okay, well, you just played 2 extra beats. So I'm just going to throw in a bar of 2, and now my bar numbers still all line up. So I'll just do that after the fact. It doesn't edit the audio at all. I'm just assigning the bar numbers the way they're supposed to be. So yeah.
That's exactly what I do. And it's like, go ahead.
Probably better.
Yeah, well, and it's like when it is worth it, it really is worth it to do that time signature mapping, because like I do sometimes find like having the accented click is more helpful than harmful if I'm getting used to how the part works with the click, which is the thing I was talking at the beginning, like where it's like if I've got this one part that feels weird, like this part opens up and I tend to rush it. But really, it needs to be like it's slower than I think it is, or there's just a syncopation that's a little bit weird. And if I can time signature map it so that the first downbeat of each measure does sound different, then it feels much better to me. It's much easier to record to and all that jazz. And then I'm like almost to the end of these notes. I feel like we've been recording
next
so
bullet.
Long now. So what is this? Oh yeah. Okay. Two more things basically. So first of all, the topic of rock bands coming into the studio thinking their song has tempo changes.
Right.
And then turns out they don't.
And they like the sound of it once I just have them play it all at the same tempo. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote, and let's see if I remember what the heck I was saying about this. I have the opposite problem. I begin recording a project thinking my song has one tempo, but then realize that the tempo feels right for most of the song, but it's definitely killing the vibe of a different section. And then I have to program a change into the tempo map after recording, which often leads to re-recording that section at a later date. Or, I'm glad I record. Obviously, I'm very lucky that I record in my bedroom, and I don't pay for studio time because, but still, it's such a problem.
You'd run it up.
So I actually did want to ask, like, how you handle that with people. Do you even run into that?
I don't know if that has ever happened. Usually it's the artist says, okay, and now we have a tempo change here. And now sometimes people have come in and they've said, okay, here are the tempos of my song. Like they've got it together. They've figured it out. They've done basically a process like yours, and they're like, here, and I program it in and we're good to go. Or we get to a spot in the song. Sometimes we'll do it like that. We'll be recording. And then I'm like, okay, so when you get to this tempo change, probably just stop. And we're just going to pick it up from there once we work out what the tempo is or something. So I'll have them play, and I'll just mute the click right out and have them play. And then that take will come to a conclusion or somehow, and we'll be like, okay, so now that we're in this part, let's find the new tempo for this. I'll program that into the software, and then we'll kind of pick it up and do more takes there. So we've sort of found where in the song that change is going to happen. Do they ever think there's not a tempo change and then come back and discover? I don't think that's ever happened, but it's just the people that I've met. Like almost always when there is a tempo change, they know about it ahead of time. Or they think it's there and it doesn't need to be. It's just someplace where they're dragging or where the song gets loud, so they rushed and they didn't know it.
Right. And if they were practicing to a click,
They would have discovered
They
it
might
before
have
they got to
discovered that
me.
on their own.
And that's the
is-
pre-production process that we talked about, since in a later episode now we talked a bunch about
Yes.
that, but that's like one of the major things that you would do while you are pre-recording your song as prep for recording it, is figure out these things. Like, I think there's tempo changes in this. Are there really? That's something you discover.
Yeah, well, that's like one of the two major problems I often have, or not, I don't know, not often, but I have these things where it's like the song calms down at a certain point, and I think it's the same tempo, but it's really not. And after I've done and recorded a whole bunch of stuff, I'm listening back and I'm like, this just feels wrong. It feels it's lacking some energy, and the way to give it the right energy is actually to slow it down, which is counterintuitive, and it just like relaxes into the part and. But then I have to re-record the whole damn part, so it sucks.
Such is the way.
But so the last big thing was just this whole topic of letting the music breathe, because
as in
I
the tempo
think-
track is going to stifle it, right?
Yeah, well, so like, and this is where I wonder, I was really curious about like from Kate's perspective here too, because like. So first of all, I think you're right that, most people say this, they're not actually wanting tempo rubato, which is like very deliberate push-pull tempo, right?
Yeah.
They are not wanting the da 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 da, like, and that is like, I mean, it's not exclusively, but it's kind of more of like a orchestra situation, type of situation, but certainly not exclusively. Like I have a couple of songs where it's going to feel totally wrong unless I am doing that. And I don't know how I would play that to a click. And you were kind of saying,
Oh, hold on.
hi.
Okay.
Not a watch warning.
Okay. There's a tornado. So we're gonna end on that, and I'm gonna have to hang up with you guys because we got to go down to the basement.
Okay.
It's not gonna hit my
safe.
house. We have too many hills, but I guess I don't know. I don't know what to do. This episode will have whatever it's gonna have in it. It's gonna have in it, and I may just pop in and record an intro later. But I got to run downstairs in order to follow the rules. So thank
Okay.
you all so much.
Well,
I'm gonna have to
hopefully,
get back with you. I'll text you later. Sorry.
Cool.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. This
Yeah.
is really fun.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Be safe. Bye.
And I guess I'll record something here for just at the end. Sorry that it had to get cut off like that. It was a really good chat. And I wanted to say thanks to Kate and Ty for joining us. It was really, really fun. And thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to the patrons who, help support the show. And you can become a patron by going to patreon.com/theToneControl. And you can join the Discord and join the newsletter from links in the show notes and chat with us even more. And more giveaways are going to happen as we go, as I said, as we can remember them. Anyway, so patrons this week, sorry, my thing's over here. It's written in the wrong spot. Patrons this week that we are thanking are Rabbi Bob, Palm Teddy, Carson Ricketts, Matthew Fenslaw, Ryzen Wolf, Brian Gower of the Tone Jerks podcast, Andrew Walsh of Andrew's Alcove, Sean Wright of Lollygagger Effects, Doug Gann, and Peanut Butterman. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.